You know, addiction doesn't always show up the way we expect it to. It's not just a bottle in someone's hand or a needle in their arm. Sometimes it's the ninth time you've scrolled Instagram in less than a minute. Sometimes it's that quiet panic when a certain person doesn't text you back. It's the moment you whisper, just one more episode. And suddenly it's 3 in the morning and you don't even remember what you were trying to avoid. It sneaks in quietly. No alarm bells, no dramatic entrances. Just small habits that start to feel normal until they don't. And here's the question no one's asking. What if your addiction isn't a problem to be punished, but a signal from your soul asking to be heard? See, the truth is, most of us aren't really chasing pleasure. We're trying to escape something deeper, not a high, but a low. And the scariest part? We don't even know where that low comes from. It just lives in the background, a quiet ache behind the smile, a sense of emptiness we've learned to ignore because no one ever taught us how to name it. Maybe you've felt it before. That hollow moment after the scrolling stops, after the show ends, after the buzz fades. And suddenly it's just you and the silence. But what if that silence isn't emptiness? What if it's a message? Because addiction isn't always about the thing we're doing. It's about the feeling we're trying not to feel. And until we understand that, we'll keep searching for relief in all the wrong places. So maybe, just maybe, addiction isn't a flaw. Maybe it's a signal, a quiet, persistent whisper from the part of you that's still waiting to be acknowledged, still waiting to be welcomed home. If you had asked Carl Jung how to treat addiction, he wouldn't start with a detox. He wouldn't even ask what substance you're using. He'd ask you something deeper, something most people never think to ask. How's your soul? Because to Jung, addiction isn't a bad habit. It's not about willpower or self-control. It's a spiritual problem, a symptom of something missing inside. And honestly, look around. We live in a world that's constantly chasing stimulation. Scrolling, clicking, consuming. But somehow we still feel numb. Because the dopamine we're all hooked on, it's drying up. Not just from overstimulation, but from disconnection. Disconnection from our truest self. Not the role we play, not the job we have, but the part of us that's rooted in purpose, in meaning, in something real. Jung believed this disconnection is the root of our suffering. He called it a loss of the self, and in that loss, something inside us gets thirsty. Not for alcohol, not for sugar or social media, or even approval, but for wholeness. You see, addiction isn't about the thing you're addicted to. It's about the emptiness that came first.
In Jung's words, every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol or morphine or idealism. That last word, idealism, catches you off guard, doesn't it? Because he wasn't just warning against substances, he was pointing to a universal truth. It's not the object that matters, it's the space inside us we're trying to fill. The problem is, most modern approaches only treat the behavior. We patch the habit, but we ignore the human. We numb the symptom, but we never ask what it's pointing to. But Jung did. He believed real healing only begins when we're brave enough to look at what we've buried. Our fear, our shame, our shadow. Because addiction is not your enemy, it's your signal. Let's talk about dopamine. Not as a buzzword, not as some feel-good chemical we throw around in headlines, but as the quiet current that moves beneath everything we do. Dopamine isn't just about pleasure, it's what drives us. It's the anticipation before the reward, the motivation to reach, to try, to care. It's the spark behind everything that makes life feel alive. So what happens when that spark begins to fade? When the things that used to feel exciting now feel flat, empty? That's when we begin reaching for the drink, the phone, the second helping, the endless scroll, not for joy, but just to feel something. But here's where it gets deeper. Dopamine depletion doesn't begin with Netflix or fast food. It begins much earlier, in childhood, in environments where being yourself came with a cost. Maybe you had to be the good kid, the strong one, the responsible one. Maybe you had to hold it together when no one else did. So you learned, slowly and quietly, that your real needs weren't safe, and you pushed them aside to survive. This is what Carl Jung called psychic splitting. It's when parts of who you are, your messiness, your sadness, your truth, get pushed underground. And in their place, you build a mask, a version of yourself that's easier for the world to accept. But the psyche doesn't forget what it buries, and neither does the body. So what does the brain do with all that unexpressed emotion? It searches for relief. Not necessarily happiness, but meaning. Even if it's fleeting, even if it's found in something destructive. Just one moment where you don't feel numb. And that's how the cycle begins. You disconnect from yourself. Your dopamine crashes. You chase something to escape it. Then shame sets in, and you disconnect even further. It's not a loop of addiction. It's a loop of survival. So before we judge ourselves for what we're reaching for, maybe we should pause and ask, what part of me have I been running from? Because the craving might not be for a substance. It might be for you. Carl Jung once said, "We don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious."
And the more I sit with that, the more I realize healing doesn't begin when you fix the habit. It begins when you face the pain it's been hiding. See, we often treat addiction like a problem to be solved. We think, if I could just stop drinking or scrolling or needing them. But Jung saw it differently. He believed addiction isn't the enemy, it's a messenger. A signal from the unconscious whispering, there's something inside you that needs your attention. So the real question becomes, what pain is this addiction trying to anesthetize? And even deeper than that, what part of me have I abandoned in order to survive? Because that's often where the root lies, not in the substance, but in the silence we've learned to live with. In the parts of ourselves we've shut away, the anger we were told not to feel, the sadness we hid to protect others, the dreams we buried because they didn't fit the role we were expected to play. And those parts don't just disappear, they wait in the shadow until one day they start leaking out through anxiety, burnout, addiction, disconnection. Jung wasn't trying to make you sober, he wanted to make you whole, to help you integrate the pieces of yourself you've lost touch with. Because true healing isn't about perfection, it's about making peace with your own contradictions. That's why he paid so much attention to dreams, symbols, and archetypes. They weren't nonsense. They were messages from the forgotten self, the inner child, the rebel, the healer, the parts of you that still remember who you really are. So maybe the craving isn't proof that you're broken. Maybe it's your body's cry for reconnection.
Maybe the addiction isn't the darkness. Maybe the darkness is the part of you asking to be seen, finally, without shame. And that shift right there is the beginning of transformation. Because the moment you stop seeing addiction as a flaw and start seeing it as a signal, is the moment healing truly begins. If addiction is a symptom not of weakness, but of separation, then healing doesn't start with discipline. It starts with reconnection, with the quiet, often forgotten parts of ourselves that are still waiting to be seen. Carl Jung didn't believe in surface-level solutions. He believed that lasting change comes from integration, from reuniting with the parts of ourselves we've judged, rejected, or buried. And the beautiful thing is, he didn't just leave us with theory. He gave us a map, a set of tools that help us return gently, gradually.
When those parts don't feel safe in the light, They go underground. But they don't disappear. They show up as patterns, projections, and often addiction. Shadow work is about turning toward what you've hidden and asking with compassion, what truth have I been afraid to face? One place to begin is journaling. Try writing this prompt. If my addiction had a voice, what would it say to me? Then listen. No judgment, just honesty. You might find that what feels broken is actually a buried need calling out to be heard. Jung may not have taught breathwork, but he understood something vital. The unconscious isn't just in the mind. It lives in the body, too. Breathwork uses conscious, rhythmic breathing to bypass your thinking brain and speak directly to your nervous system. It says, "It's safe now. You can let go." When we breathe this way, emotions rise, tears flow, memories surface, and for a moment, you feel a clarity that addiction could never give you. Addiction numbs to protect. Breathwork reveals to heal. Even one session can remind you the thing you've been craving is your own presence. Jung believed the soul doesn't speak in words. It speaks in symbols, in images, in sacred gestures. So, here's a ritual to help you reconnect. Find a quiet space. Light a candle, a symbol of warmth, presence, and purification. Sit in front of a mirror. Look into your own eyes. And gently say, "I know I've been trying to escape something. I don't fully understand it yet, but I'm here now, and I'm ready to listen." Then write a letter to the part of you that's been addicted. Not to punish it, but to understand it. Fold the letter. Place it beneath the candle. Let it burn for 15 minutes while you sit. And just be with yourself. Because this isn't about fixing anything. It's about remembering that you are not your pain. You are the one who has always survived it. And you're finally coming home. Here's a truth that might challenge everything you've been told. Healing isn't about going back to who you were before the addiction. It's about... So ask yourself honestly, what in my life feeds the addiction and what feeds my authenticity? That's not a rhetorical question. It's an invitation. And the answers don't have to be big. They can start small. One honest conversation. One creative outlet. One boundary that finally gets honored. These small acts, they're not just good habits. They're acts of soul care. Little moments that say, "I matter. My truth matters." Addiction thrives in overstimulation and underconnection. We scroll instead of speak. We binge instead of feel. We consume instead of create. But your brain wasn't wired for endless dopamine spikes. It was built for meaning, for depth, for beauty. So instead of asking, "How do I stop the habit?" ask, "What is this craving asking for?" Emotionally, spiritually, existentially.
Begin replacing dopamine loops with meaning loops. Paint something, even if it's messy. Sit in silence and actually feel. Read something that stirs your soul. Spend time with people who offer more than small talk, people who hold space. Because when your life becomes a place where your real self is welcome, addiction begins to lose its grip. Here's the part no one talks about. Healing isn't linear. It spirals. It circles back. It revisits the wound until it's truly seen. So if you relapse, you haven't failed. You haven't lost your progress. You're just entering the next layer of healing. You're not back at square one. You're deeper, more aware. And this time, you have tools. Language, compassion, clarity. The miracle isn't that you never fell. It's that the very thing that broke you is now becoming your doorway to liberation. This is the path of individuation, not recovery, not self-improvement, reclamation. So here's the paradox that changes everything. The very thing that once broke you can become the doorway that sets you free. What if addiction wasn't the end of your story, but the invitation to rewrite it? Carl Jung didn't see healing as becoming someone better. He saw it as becoming someone truer, someone whole, someone who no longer needs to hide behind survival patterns, but is finally ready to come home to themselves. This is the path of individuation, not self-improvement, not perfection, but reclamation. Reclaiming the shadow, the parts of you that were never bad, just buried. Reclaiming the child, who once felt joy without shame, curiosity without fear. Reclaiming the artist, the one who still longs to express beauty, even in the middle of chaos.
So if you've made it this far in the journey, if something deep inside you has been stirred, even if only slightly, this is your sign. You are not broken. You are becoming. You're not starting over. You're spiraling deeper, with more awareness, more clarity, and more capacity to hold yourself with compassion. The pain you've carried, it's not in the way. It is the way. Because through that pain, you've begun to remember your soul. And that's what this whole journey has been about. Not fixing what's wrong with you, but returning to what's always been right within you. So if this message has found you at just the right moment, if it felt like a mirror to a part of yourself you forgot existed, then take a breath, feel it, and declare it. I'm coming home. Because you are, and we're walking this path with you.